Hey guys, tonight we're drifting way back, before any of this fancy history with kings, queens, or even proper beds. Dim the lights, maybe pull up a blanket, get comfortable. We're talking the Stone Age, that vast stretch of time when humans and their ancestors were figuring out how to not die every single day in a world that didn't care one bit about your comfort. Of course, we like to romanticize it sometimes, right? Cavemen with clubs, chasing mammoths, living free. But let's be real. You probably tap out before lunch on day one. This is the Sleepless Historian, and we're going to float gently through the Paleolithic, the Old Stone Age, where survival wasn't some epic adventure. It was a slow, grinding routine of knowing exactly what not to eat, how not to freeze, and why wandering off alone was a terrible idea. Grab your imaginary flint knife, or don't, because you wouldn't know how to make one anyway. And let's ease into why your modern self, with all its takeout apps and central heating, would be in serious trouble. Of course he, or she, thought they could handle it, because why not double down on that fantasy? Picture this. You wake up one morning, somehow transported back 20,000 years or so, give or take a few ice ages. No alarm clock, just the chill air and the distant sounds of, well, whatever's out there that might want to eat you. The Stone Age covers a huge chunk of time, from about 3.3 million years ago, with the first stone tools, up until around 12,000 years ago, when things started shifting toward farming in some places. But for our purposes tonight, we're mostly hanging out in the Upper Paleolithic, with folks who looked pretty much like us, biologically modern humans, smart enough to paint caves and make tools, but without any of the accumulated knowledge we've got piled up since then. Let's start slow, like a gentle glide through the morning mist. First problem, your body. You're used to sitting at desks, scrolling, maybe hitting the gym a couple times a week, if you're feeling ambitious. Stone Age folks, they were on the move constantly. Hunter-gatherers didn't have rest days unless injury forced it. Their lives revolved around walking miles every day, carrying loads, processing food, maintaining shelters. Studies of their bones showed they were incredibly fit, with strong muscles and resilient joints from a lifetime of real work. You, my friend, your soft, optimized for couch life, would leave you sore, blistered, and exhausted within hours. Those tough feet that ancient people developed from going barefoot or in minimal wraps. Yours are pampered in socks and shoes. One wrong step on sharp rocks or thorny undergrowth, and you're limping, which in this world means you're slowing the group down. And slowing the group down, not ideal. Speaking of groups, that's another big one. You wouldn't last alone. The basic unit wasn't some rugged individualist. It was the band, usually around 20 to 30 people. Your family, your knowledge base, your protection, your everything. Without them sharing the load, tracking animals, remembering which plants won't kill you, you're basically done. Modern survival shows sometimes hype up solo skills, but the reality was cooperation or bust. These bands moved with the seasons, following food sources, knowing the land intimately in ways we'd need years to learn. Of course you think your weekend camping trips prepared you. Cute. Now let's talk about waking up properly. No coffee, no breakfast burrito. Maybe some leftover dried meat or foraged bits from yesterday if you're lucky. Fire was crucial. Keeping it going through the night was a skill. You banked the coals, add fuel carefully, mess it up, and you're starting from scratch with friction methods or striking stones, which takes time and energy you might not have. Insects everywhere, no repellent. Ticks, bites, the constant low-level annoyance that could turn into infection fast. No antibiotics, remember. A simple cut from knapping flint, shaping stones into tools by hitting them just right, could go bad quickly. Those tool makers had years of practice, reading the stone's fractures like an old friend. You'd probably smash your fingers more than anything. Shelter depends where you are. In colder spots during the Ice Age, it might be caves or huts made from mammoth bones, branches, hides. Comfortable? Not really. Hard floors, drafty, shared with everyone. You build a bed of leaves or grass maybe, but weather could swing wildly. One day mild, next to freeze. Hypothermia doesn't wait around. You need to know how to insulate, layer hides properly. Treated with fat sometimes to make them last. Modern clothes. Useless pretty quick without the right prep. Food. Oh, food. This is where most of us would really struggle. Hunter-gatherers had incredibly detailed knowledge of their environment. Which berries are safe? Which roots need soaking for days to remove toxins? When to hunt which animals for maximum fat? Meat was huge in many places, especially in colder climates, but gathering plants supplemented it. A big kill was a feast that had to be processed fast, drying, smoking, storing fat for lean times. Starvation was real. Bones show periods of stress. You don't have that mental map. Poisonous plants look a lot like edible ones to the untrained eye. And hunting. Forget charging at a mammoth with a pointy stick. It took coordinated effort, tracking skills honed over lifetimes, understanding animal behavior deeply. Small game, fishing, scavenging, all require technique. Of course, you try to just Google it in your head. No signal back then. Water. Clean water wasn't always easy. Rivers, springs, but knowing which ones were safe, avoiding contamination. No filters. Dysentery or parasites could hit hard. In dry seasons, finding reliable sources was life or death. 3 days without it, and things get serious. You, used to taps and bottles, might not even spot the signs of dehydration creeping up while you're distracted by the scenery. And the predators. Saber-toothed cats, giant hyenas, wolves, bears in some areas. Not constant battles, but the threat was there. You stay alert, use fire, stay in the group. Isolation meant vulnerability. Climate fluctuations added layers. Ice ages meant harsh winters, scarce resources. People adapted with clothing, shelters, planning ahead. But it was relentless. No weekends off. As the day wears on, you'd notice the constant low hum of activity. Tool maintenance, processing hides for clothes or containers, teaching the kids. Everything was hands-on. Knowledge passed orally, demonstrated. No books, no videos. You learn by doing, or you don't survive long enough to pass it on. Social intelligence mattered hugely. Keeping the band together, managing conflicts without tearing the group apart. Egalitarian in many ways, but with roles shaped by necessity. Men and women both contributed, often differently, but cooperation was key. By afternoon, maybe a gathering trip or a hunt. Hours of walking, observing. Modern attention spans tuned to notifications. Good luck maintaining focus on tracks or plant patterns for that long. Exhaustion sets in. Then evening. Storytelling around the fire perhaps. Repairing gear. Tending to the young and old. Life expectancy varied, but those who made it past childhood often reached decent ages, though injuries and infections took their toll. Child mortality was high. No hospitals. You see the pattern. The Stone Age wasn't glamorous hardship. It was intimate knowledge of a tough world, physical endurance built from birth, and a social web that held everything together. Dropping cold, and your fancy education, your gadgets, your assumptions, they don't translate. You'd be learning the hard way, and the world back then didn't grade on a curve. Let's float a bit further into the specifics of daily hazards and skills as the night deepens. Part 2. The slow grind. Foraging, tools, and all the ways nature wins. Hey, still with me? Good. Lights low, breathing steady. We're picking up right where we left off in that endless Stone Age morning. You've somehow made it past the first awkward hours without freezing or stepping on something unpleasant. Of course you did, in your imagination. Reality though. Let's ease into the rest of the day and see how that optimism holds up. Because the weird truth is, survival here wasn't about one big dramatic moment. It was this quiet, repetitive dance with the landscape that could wear you down before you even noticed. By mid-morning, the band is moving. Not rushing like some action scene, just that steady, purposeful walk. Maybe 5 or 10 miles depending on the season and what the scouts spotted yesterday. Your modern legs, conditioned to flat sidewalks and occasional hikes, would start complaining pretty quick. Blisters form fast when you're not used to uneven ground, rocks, mud. Ancient feet were tougher, calloused from a lifetime of it. And shoes, when they had them, they were simple wraps or hides, nothing cushioned. One sprained ankle from a hidden root, and suddenly you're not just uncomfortable, you're a liability. Groups couldn't afford to carry dead weight for long. Of course you try to tough it out, because why not push through like in the movies? Food gathering takes center stage. The women and kids, and often the men too, fan out knowing exactly what to look for. Roots that need digging with a sharpened stick. Berries at the right ripeness. Nuts, seeds, greens. In many places, plants made up a big chunk of the diet, especially where game was scarce. But knowledge was everything. Some plants are fine raw, others toxic unless soaked, boiled, or pounded just right. Trial and error back then meant some errors were fatal. You don't have that generational database in your head. That pretty red berry might be your last meal. Insects, grubs, eggs, all fair game if you know where and how. Nothing wasted. Of course, modern you packed protein bars in your fantasy kit. They ran out yesterday. Hunting, when it happened, was patient. Not charging in. Tracking signs, droppings, broken twigs, footprints, reading the wind, the time of day. Coordinated drives or ambushes with spears, atlatls, those spear throwers that give extra power, or simple bows in later periods. Big game like deer, horses, or the occasional mammoth was a jackpot. Tons of meat, fat, hides, bones for tools. But success rates weren't high. Missed too often, and the band goes hungry. Processing the kill. Hours of work. Butchering with stone blades, cracking bones for marrow. rendering fat for storage, drying strips over smoke for lean times. You lack the muscle memory, the sharp eye for the exact strike point on flint to get a usable edge. Napping is an art. One wrong hit and your tool shatters. Hours wasted, fingers bruised, frustration building while everyone else just knows. Let's float over to shelter and maintenance for a second. Midday might bring a stop to reinforce camp or make repairs. In open country, windbreaks from branches and hides. In colder stretches, more solid structures. Mammoth bone frameworks covered in skins and turf. Firewood collection never ends. You learn which woods burn hot, which slow, which make good coals for carrying to the next spot. Keeping that fire alive was like tending a temperamental pet. Lose it in the rain or wind, and restarting with a bow drill or flint and pyrite takes skill, patience, and dry tinder you might not have prepped. Smoke keeps bugs down somewhat, warmth at night. But constant exposure means respiratory stuff, eye irritation over time. No medicine cabinet for that cough that turns bad. The little things pile up. Parasites from water or undercooked meat. Dental wear from gritty food. Stones in the flour from grinding. Arthritis from repetitive strain, though many stayed active late. Injuries from falls, animal kicks, fights over resources. No x-rays, no stitches really. Maybe plant fibers or simple bindings. Infections were the silent killers. A deep cut or puncture. You're rolling the dice. Children learn young by watching, helping. No schools, just real life as the classroom. You'd be the clueless outsider, maybe useful for carrying stuff at first, but slowing the knowledge transfer. Bands were tight, egalitarian-ish, but roles mattered for survival. Afternoon wears on. Maybe some tool crafting or hide scraping. Scraping fat and flesh off skins with stone scrapers so they don't rot. Brains or smoke for tanning. Time-consuming, smelly work, but necessary for clothing that actually lasts. Your t-shirt from home, shredded already. The social side hums along. Quiet conversations, sharing observations about the land, planning the next move. Storytelling at dusk, passing on lore. No one person knew everything. It was collective wisdom. Inbreeding was avoided through networks and exogamy in many groups. They weren't isolated inbred clans like some myths say. Small populations, yes, but smart about mixing when possible. As evening settles, the rhythm shifts again. Preparing the simple meal. Roasted meat, boiled roots, if they have containers like woven baskets or skin bags. Sharing is everything. Hoarding, not really a thing when mobility is key. Everything you own, you can carry. No accumulation of stuff. Your brain, wired for modern abundance and stress over emails, would struggle with this scarcity mindset, mixed with constant vigilance. No off switch. Sleep is light, interrupted. Predators, weather, the need to tend fire. Dreams maybe blending the day's lessons. You wouldn't make it to nightfall without help, honestly. The physical toll, the knowledge gaps, the social disconnect. One bad choice, wrong plant, poor camp spot, ignoring a warning sign, and it's over quietly. No rescue helicopter. The land doesn't negotiate. This is the gentle truth of it. Not constant terror, but a steady pressure that shaped tough, knowledgeable people adapted to their world. We carry their genes, but not their skills. Of course, we'd romanticize being one of them. easier than admitting how soft we've become. And as we slowly come to the end of this part, things begin to quiet down a little. The arena fades, the noise softens, and for a moment, everything feels still. If you made it this far, I hope your mind has started to drift just a bit. Maybe your thoughts are slower now, a little heavier, a little calmer. And if you're still awake, well, that's okay too. There's plenty more of this slow, strange history waiting ahead. So if you'd like to keep wandering through these stories with me, you can gently like the video and subscribe to the channel. No rush, of course. You can always do it later, or not at all. For now, just rest, and when you're ready, we'll continue.